For the last nearly 2 full years, the United States has been locked in an existential battle for its very own survival, and that the American people have been deceived by their deep state into believing it involves Russia. And this was deliberately caused by failed 2016 U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton hiring a disgraced former British spy named Christopher Steele to concoct lies for her about President Trump so she could contest her own loss and throw him out of office. With this deep state and Hillary Clinton generated and lie-fueled Russian hysteria sweeping across America, the citizens of that country were unable to hear the warning just issued by one of their top military experts named Dr. Robert Farley, and who, in detailing the present crisis leading is to World War III, has stated, the South China Sea has become wrapped into the growing trade clash between the United States and China. For now, that conflict is playing out in exchanges of heated rhetoric, tariffs, and various other trade sanctions. The United States and Canada recently escalated the conflict by arresting an executive of the Chinese technology firm Huawei, which led to countersteps by China against Canadian citizens and U.S. firms. As of yet, the United States and China have not drawn a tight connection between the trade war and the ongoing disputes in the South China Sea. However, as relations between the two countries deteriorate, one or the other might decide to escalate beyond dollars, words, or legal filings. Indeed, if China and the United States conclude that their trade relationship is at substantial risk, and similarly conclude that further conflicts are inevitable, then either country might decide to take off the gloves in the South China Sea. This present crisis, fast leading to global conflict, involves just two nations, the United States and China, both of whom depend on global trade to sustain their countries' vast economies, as opposed to Russia, whose massive 75 trillion in natural resource wealth makes it impervious to either global trade or the sanctions used by the West to control and protect their trading bloc. Natural resource poor China, however, cannot sustain its economy without global trade, thus making it extremely vulnerable to sanctions, trade barriers, and tariffs imposed upon it by the West, most particularly the United States, who have used sanctions to cut off China's supply of oil from Iran, and who also have imposed punishing tariffs on them as well. These actions against China by the United States are collectively known as a trade war that was begun, of course, by President Donald Trump in April of 2018, and whose intended purpose is to reduce the massive trade imbalance between these two nations that in 2008 saw China exporting over $466 billion worth of goods to the United States, but they're only allowing into their nation $102 billion worth of American products and services. Left unspoken about this U.S.-China trade war is that it's a conflict the Chinese can never win, as they desperately need the American market to sustain their own economy, while the United States barely needs China at all. A fact just acknowledged by Robin Yanhong, one of the most powerful men in China, who, as the CEO of China's dominant internet search company Baidu, just issued a warning stating that the Chinese economy is, in essence, collapsing, thus spurring him to ominously declare that winter is coming. With U.S. officials now flying into China in a last-gasp bid to prevent this trade war from becoming a hot war, President Trump has declared that China's collapsing economy is giving him the upper hand in these trade talks, a view not taken obviously by Chinese President Xi Jinping, who, in his first order issued for 2019, instructed China's armed forces to strengthen their sense of urgency and do everything they can to prepare for battle. with China just hours ago having put the U.S. officials on military alert after testing their mother-of-all bombs that could completely obliterate fortified defenses in the West. The Ministry of Defense notes even America's top military experts warned that the United States does not hold all the cards when it comes to conventional conflict, most particularly against China in the South China Sea, where U.S. military simulations showed the Chinese would destroy the U.S. Navy, but whose gravest concern about was voiced by a colonel at the U.S. Army War College, who memorably phrased the problem, quote, "The United States has wrongly predicted every conflict since the Korean War. Why should we expect World War III will be any different," unquote.
New Year can be a time of reflection and resolution, and China's President Xi took the opportunity to readdress tensions with Taiwan. Initially, you wouldn't be mistaken to think that a peaceful solution was on its way after 70 years of strained relations between the two sides. But then came the mixed messaging.
Chinese don't fight Chinese. We are willing to strive for the prospect of peaceful reunification with the utmost sincerity and the greatest efforts, because peaceful reunification is in the best interests of the compatriots across the strait and the Chinese nation. But we make no promise to renounce the use of force.
What started off as an olive branch quickly turned into a thorny bush if we judge Taiwan's angry reaction.
Taiwan will definitely not accept one country, two systems. China has to respect the 23 million Taiwanese people's persistence on freedom and democracy, instead of interfering with Taiwan's choice of democracy by polarizing Taiwan's society and luring talents.
If we take a step back into time, it was a civil war during the late 1940s over the political status of Taiwan that caused the split in China. The peoples of both sides are of the same ethnicity, speak the same language, but are ruled by two separate governments. In China's eyes, Taiwan is a breakaway province, and consequently, because of the refusal to accept its independence, the 110-mile-wide Taiwan Strait remains one of the most heavily militarized flashpoints in the world. To add fuel to China's fire, it seems the U.S. is backing Taiwan by not only signing a bill back in September 2018, approving $330 million worth of arms sales, but on the 31st of December, Trump signed a pro-Taiwan Asia Reassurance Initiative Act into law, promising increased support in the Indo-Pacific region, including arms sales for U.S. allies like Taiwan, as well as others. It's not the first time China has aired its anger, and they're certainly not holding back at the U.S. this time.
The sale of weapons by the United States to Taiwan is a serious violation of international law and the basic principles of international relations.
The relevant act seriously violates the One China principle and grossly interferes in China's internal affairs. China is strongly dissatisfied and opposed to the U.S. insisting on signing it into law, and we have made solemn complaints with the U.S.
It's not 100% about China. It's also about North Korea and some forces in the Middle East. But I would say it's mainly about China. And does highlight the strategic competition between the United States and China. The United States is serious about Asian Pacific, and this has specific reference to Taiwan. So in that, according to that act, the US probably will encourage this high-level official visit to Taiwan. It will have regular arms sales to Taiwan. And none of this is what Beijing would like. So in the context of the US-China strategic competition, I do think this is a worrying sign.
It now looks like peace and harmony won't be reached as easily as China wishes, with Taiwan making it clear that they're not likely to back down, and the US showing their obvious support for Taiwan. And all the international community can do is hope that a compromise will come to fruition and this war of words will end. Nadira Tudor, RT.